we didn't have taxis. We either traveled by train or bus. And the Noordhoek bus would come from town. It would come down this Canada Road. The first stop would be at the bottom. The second stop would be on this corner here next to my house. That would be the second time. And in the afternoon, when the bus stops here, I'm not saying all, but people would shout, oh, in Afrikaans, Ware say no. The terrorists was no need. Ware say no. Where is she now? And you know, it was when I heard that this had happened, but well, I didn't know because I was in jail, but I was told when I came out how they used to, you know, say this. I felt, my goodness, could people be so cruel? Mavesta is the third born daughter of Sir Stephen and Clara Palmer. I was born in 1922 in a little mining community on Elof Street Extension in Johannesburg. I actually became involved in the struggle after the 1940s, you know, when I became an independent person. All the time I was a minor, I was in my mother's house, but I learned about the passive resistance. That's when I started getting involved in it.
One of my first interactions with apartheid, it was, I think I probably was about 6 years of age, and my mother took us to the Rand show. At that time it was called the Rand Easter show. I was wanting to take a ride on one of the amusement playthings, and I was told at that age, and I couldn't understand why, that those amusement toys were specifically for one group. And I think that probably was my first encounter with this vicious system.
I was about 5 years old. It was in 76. My granny had been arrested. And I don't know why this is so vivid for me, but I remember every detail. It was a Tuesday. And Tuesdays, my mom was allowed to take food for her. And because I was 5 years old, I was not in school yet. So I went with. And she was held at the fort, which is now Constitutional Hill. And we weren't allowed in. Only one person was allowed in. And we were lucky that day because the warder at the door was a nice lady. So she opened the door so I could see my granny for 2 seconds, 3 seconds maybe. And I think that was the point in my life when I realized apartheid's here and it's bad.
Fighting the struggle was worth it in many, on various fronts. It gave us an opportunity to begin a process where there was going to be involvement by all within the running of the country. I think it was more just what was taking place throughout the country. There was too many things happening that illustrated to me that this was a system that was fraught with injustices. So yes, it was a little bit of, you know, of her influence, but I think we were caught up, all of us. I think majority of black people in the country who felt the viciousness of apartheid was caught up in that particular sort of frame to say that we need to actually sort of fight for a different order.
It was in 1976. I was working for the South African Committee for Higher Education. It's called SACHED, S-A-C-H-E-D. And this was a group of people, black and white, who were trying to fill the gap that was left by Bantu education. And I was working there when one of the ladies working there, Helene, and she came to me in the office where I was working, and she said, "Ma, I'm afraid you are going to be arrested." I said, "What do you mean, Helene?" She said, "Well, at the front office, at the front desk, are some police, what do we call them? Special branch police looking for you." I said, "Oh my goodness, Helene." And I said, "Oh well, there's nothing I can do about it. I suppose if I have to be arrested, I must be." It was a Friday afternoon. I remember looking at the door at the back door of the building. You know, you go out and you go down iron steps at the back. I looked at it and I said to her, I wonder if I should just go down those steps and run away. But then I said to her, "But why should I run away? What have I done? And how long will I run before they catch me? So let them do what they want to do." So I went, and there were these 3 white security branch people. And they said they'd come to take me to John Vorster Square.
Sorry. It was hard. It was really hard. I'm very close to my granny. Although I have a mum, my granny's always been my mum. I've always lived with her. All my young life I lived with her. So it was hard. It was really hard. And there were times when you didn't cope, you know. Sometimes when she was incarcerated, it would be too much for my mother. And, you know, there wouldn't be much food, there wouldn't be much of anything. So it was very hard, very painful.
Given her age, she wasn't a young person at that stage, and given the viciousness of the security police, it was always a constant, fear in my mind as to how she was being treated. So yes, I think that was probably one of the hardest things to accept, is that here's a person who was well over, almost in her 70s, and was arrested at that stage. I think we were arrested ostensibly, myself and my mother, for our involvement within the United Democratic Front. They, unfortunately, we were all living in this small house, and they shared a room with me. And when they raided the evening, and it was during the declaration of the state of emergency, they were sharing the same room as I was sharing. And because of the fact that they were sleeping in the same room, just for a bizarre sort of reason for that, they were all just, taken with.
It was awful. It was awful. You must remember, as I came in, I was told to squat, and this young girl, who could have been my daughter, or perhaps even had been my granddaughter, opening up my vagina. I don't know what she was looking for in the vagina. Then people told me afterwards, well, when you go to prison, they want to see if you haven't hidden something in your vagina. Oh my God. But anyway, so it was really horrible, horrible, horrible. And as I say, this was a Friday afternoon. On Saturday morning, my children were now aware that I was in prison. They brought clean clothes for me. They refused to take the clothes. They said, we don't take clothes over weekends. So I had to sit with what I had on from Friday morning until Monday morning. I was smelling.
She's probably my Mandela. You know, she's my everything. She's my icon. She's my mother. She's my best friend. She's played a very significant role in my life from a very young age. She's a strong woman. She's taught me so much. She's taught me to stand up and fight for what I believe in. And not only taught me with words, but she showed me with her actions and her life that justice and peace in this world is very important. And those are values we need to fight for. They're not values which we have at the moment, not completely. So in many ways, there's still much to be done. And the legacy that she and her crowd from yesterday left behind, we need to carry forward, and we really need to stand up and fight for justice and peace in this world.
For people that don't know, because today people take it for granted and they are messing things up. But it wasn't good. You know, you go to a post office and you are told you can't go into this door. It's a big sign that says Europeans only. And then there's a sign that says non-Europeans, you must go in there. And I always felt, why should that be? It's not right. After all, we are all human beings. Why should we? Even in our churches, we had apartheid.
I think it was worth it in the sense that white domination had come to an end. I think one of the most painful things of the struggle was the fact that a few people, the white minority, was benefiting so much from the system. But the disappointment was that later on it became apparent that again a few within the black oppressed class were actually becoming or were going to be benefiting from the system. So from that perspective, yes, it was important. It was a milestone, but it was also disappointing to find out that just a few were economically then emancipated. Because I think the struggle is all about, at the end of the day, the economic emancipation. That should have been more key.
Last night I dreamt we star falling. The moon was red as blood, fleecy clouds moving by in the African skies.
You see, the thing is, I'm not mobile, and as you see, I've got a back problem. I really can't walk. I've struggled to walk. So I can't, even if I wanted to go there, I can't get onto a taxi to get there. Or even now, they've got the Rea Vaya bus. It's difficult for me to get, there's the bus stop just across there, but I can't get there. So unless I've got a car that can take me to these places, I don't go anywhere.
Fleecy clouds moving by in the African skies.
It is very important because children who were born after 1994, they see today that They can stay where they want to, where they like to. They must know that their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents were not allowed. You know, we were all huddled into little apartheid hokkies, and it caused a lot of damage and a lot of misunderstanding. That is why sometimes you get a lot of racism, because people still live in those still believed in those old traditions where you are not of the race that I am, therefore we can't work together. Thina sizwe esimnyama sikhalela izwe lethu elathathwa ngabamhlophe. And then the men would say, Mamba ye, and we would say, Mamba ye, Mamba ye, umhlaba wethu. Thina sizwe esimnyama sikhalela izwe lethu elathathwa ngabamhlophe.